Hi everyone, I'm Vanessa Musi from vanessamusi.com, and today we're making my favorite paleo bulletproof scones. So stay with me and we're going to start baking. Here are the ingredients, and today we're using all gluten-free, super clean ingredients. Almond flour, we have golden flaxseed, which is organic, freshly ground, sea salt, baking powder, low glycemic sweetener of choice, vanilla extract, arrowroot powder, coconut flour, and most importantly, we're using ghee. And use the finest quality grass-fed ghee and chop it up, put it in the freezer until ready to use. We're using coconut yogurt or coconut cream. You can use any zest, lemon zest, orange zest over here. And here's a master recipe you can adapt. So we're going to add dried unsweetened cranberries or cherries and chocolate, 70% chocolate chips. You can switch that for blueberries or any other ingredient of choice. And you can make this recipe also vegan, so you can switch the ghee for palm shortening. So there we go, let's start. So I'm gonna be making these scones in a food processor, Thermomix, or you can make them by hand. I'll show you both ways. And I like to make it in a food processor because it's so much easier and faster, but you can also make it in a bowl and use the scraper. And you're gonna blend all the ingredients by hand. That's another option. So you have any option you want. So what you want to do is put all your dry ingredients into the food processor. There's really no order, just put them all in. Add your zest. Flaxseed can be substituted also for collagen powder as well. If you want to add an extra boost of protein, same amount. And the recipe is linked. Now that we've added all our dry ingredients, except the garnishes, you always want to keep your add-ins separately towards the end. So let's keep these separate. I've kept all the wet ingredients separately over here. And I'm going to add the ghee over to I'm going to mix this first to incorporate the dry ingredients really well. So you can do this by hand or in a food processor or in a Vitamix as well. Now we're going to add our ghee or palm shortening. Make sure it's really, really cold. You want it frozen. So once you scale it, you put it in the freezer. That's the first thing you have to do. It has to be rock solid. Okay, put that in, and we're going to process this until we find a texture that's like small lentils. So our texture is fine. We want to double check your food processor, and we want to have small bits of butter or ghee. And if your chunks are too big, you want to process it again, or you can finish chopping by hand. You don't want the butter to be too big, because if it's too big, it's going to melt and your texture is going to be off. So you want to, and you don't want to process too much the ingredients, the butter, because it's going to not be flaky. So double check with your hand, make sure it's really well processed. You can also finish by hand. Make sure it's really cold. If you need to, put it back in the freezer. And this is where you're going to start adding your add-in ingredients. So chocolate, cranberry, cherries. If you're going to add anything that's fresh or frozen, be careful because it's going to be a little trickier to bake. Now we're going to add our coconut cream or coconut yogurt, or you can combine both. Make sure they're unsweetened. Make sure they're thick. So you might need to add a little extra coconut cream. That depends on the flours you're using. It depends on how you processed your butter. So I like to keep in hand an extra bit of cream. Ideally, it should be cold. So make sure you have that on hand. And we're going to start mixing. If you're using frozen fruit, the liquid amount is going to decrease. And now I'm going to add my chocolate. You can, and dried cranberries that are unsweetened. You can switch this for fresh cranberries or blueberries. I'm going to mix this together. We also need the vanilla over here. So this is one of my favorite recipes. I like to keep some frozen, and when I have guests over or I have a class, I take some out of the freezer. I varnish them with extra coconut cream, and I put them in the oven directly, and they bake like freshly baked scones, and they're perfect. So this is one of my favorite recipes, and I hope you like it. It's really, really a masterpiece, I think. So now is when you want to have your hands to, you have to touch the batter a little bit to see if it's consistent, if it needs a little more cream. I always like to use less than more, and then add more if I need to, because if you over add cream, if you add too much, it's not going to work out. So the consistency is looking good. We're going to switch. Now we want to dump this onto a roll pat or a marble slab. I like the roll pat because you don't add any flour to it, and you can work on the surface without needing extra flour. So the flavor combinations of the add-ins are really endless. I like chocolate and blueberries, chocolate and cranberries, just cranberries, or even a mixture of berries. Now you really need to use your hands, because you need to touch the dough and start incorporating this and distributing the wet, and that feels really good. So start forming a pizza dough shape. So you want to have the batter, the dough, dry enough to hold its shape, but wet enough so it's moist when you bake it. So you just have to keep turning it over, incorporating it. So here's where we're going to need a little bit of a help from a rolling pin. You can use a wooden rolling pin, like a tapered French rolling pin, like this. You can do it by hand. You just want to get them not too thick, not too thin, because if they're too thin, they look like cookies. So you want them thick enough. This is about 2 inches thick. And we're going to cut 8 pieces of equal shape. So here you need to help the scones a little bit. So you want to shape them, finish them off nicely so the edges are smooth and they look really well finished off, because if not, they're going to bake a little bit crumbly, and you want to have them really well shaped. So this takes a little bit of time. Just fix it up like this, and then you can put them on a tray. You could freeze them, and then once you need them, like you want to bake them off every day, just put them in a small convection oven. Don't let it thaw out, just bake it directly. And you don't want to thaw something that you've frozen. You want to bake it directly. It's just going to take longer. And then, so I'm going to bake some off to show you. You can put them on a tray with a silpat. Perforated trays are better. I'll show you one over here. That's a little bit crumbly. Just fix it over here. And we have our tray already prepared. I like to use a perforated tray like this. I like to use a silk pane. A silk pane is a perforated silicone mat, which is ideal for bread and baking these types of products. So we want to have them, you can put them in the freezer for 30 minutes. Just make sure that the shape is retained and they bake a little better and they're more moist. So that's why I like to put them in the freezer for 30 minutes. And then I bake them in a preheated 360-degree oven. And then I lower the temperature. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, you guys, so now we're going to put the scones that you shaped, put them in a small tray with a parchment paper, and you want to freeze them for 30 minutes just so that they retain their shape nice and easily. and the butter is cold, the ghee is cold when it gets into the oven. Again, that's a little crumbly. And if you want to store them for a longer time, you just leave them well covered or in a Ziploc bag in the freezer like that. Then we just glaze with a little bit of coconut cream and into the oven directly. So we're going to do this in the freezer. Hi guys, we're back and our scones are frozen. That was 30 minutes in the freezer. You can do it overnight. We're just going to put them on the tray, baking tray with a silt pen. Just brush them a little bit with coconut cream and sweetened. You could add some coconut sugar on top if you wanted to, or just leave plain. I like to leave mine plain. And then we're going to bake them at a preheated 365 oven. And then we lower the temperature once they're golden. You don't want to bake them too high because they'll get really golden and French brown, I call them. So we're just going to do a few. I'm going to freeze the rest. We don't need to bake them all. Just make sure you have all the sides as well and leave enough space. And then you put them in the oven. I like convection better, that they bake more evenly. And we go directly into the oven. Make sure you put a timer. And we want to get them golden brown, and then we lower the temperature. So this is really sealing the heat, sealing, creating like a crust, and then we're gonna, so it's moist inside. Put them in the top of the oven over here. Put a timer, and we'll see you in a bit. Hi guys, we're ready. Just make sure you understand your oven, your temperature, and just keep checking if you need to switch the tray around. And this is how you know the scones are ready. They're golden, they're crusty on top, and they're moist inside. You might want to lift it and see underneath. And really the time will depend on your oven, how thick your scone is, and what type of baking tray you used. If you use a perforated, it's going to be much faster than one that isn't. And that's it. Enjoy the scones. You'll have them fresh for like around 2 days, or you could freeze them unbaked for longer storage, up to a month. Hi guys, if you like this video, hit like, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram at Chef Vanessa Musi, and I'll see you on my website at vanessamusi.com. Thank you.